Hello and welcome to ChooseFi. Today on the show, we have what we're calling the ultimate random show. So this is not to be too derivative of Tim Ferriss, but I was actually talking with my co-host Ginger before we hit record. And I was saying, this is going to be just a fun conversation about, I have these 10 random topics. And she's like, this is the ultimate random show. That's the name of the episode. So, all right, we're going with that for this. And this should be fun. We've got a bunch of travel. We actually both got back from live FI events recently. We're going to talk maybe a little frugality, some life hacks, some health, a whole bunch of things. So stay tuned. This is going to be a fun one. With that, welcome to ChooseFi. Ginger, it is so good to see you. It feels like I just saw you.
In fact, you did.
I
Yes,
did, in
we
fact.
just got back, a week ago from Vegas, where we were both at the first ever ChooseFi event. And it was so fun.
It was so fun, right?
Yeah.
So that was with Alan and Katie Donegan, and we called it ChooseFi Vegas 2024 Design Your Extraordinary Life. And yeah, it was wild. We had, I think, 85 people, and it was just a really fun weekend, I thought. And that was your first FI event, right?
Yes. Thank you. Loyal listeners. Did you notice that a few months ago I said, I made a promise that I was going to get to a FI event in the next 2 years, and I made it happen. So as soon as this one came up, I really jumped on it, and I'm really glad that I did. Yeah.
Nice.
Should we talk about it a little bit for people who weren't there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, yeah. So we talked a lot about what it would take for us to have an extraordinary life, and we did some different exercises that sort of helped us to think about that. And it was really just nice to actually have the space to do that. And I talked to a lot of people who really appreciated, hey, these are questions that we could reflect on in our own lives, but you don't really until someone like gives you a little homework about it. And so even just being able to have that time set aside, I thought was really powerful. What were some of the main takeaways for you?
Well, hold on. I want to slow down there because we got a lot there. So yeah, that I thought was the most special part about this particular weekend. Now, what's neat is all of these FI events that I've been to, everyone has their own different flavor and character to it. And this one I thought was quite unique in the sense that it was a workshop on designing your extraordinary life. And Katie and Alan, I mean, they ran the show. To call this a Choose FI event was kind of beside the point. It was the two of them putting on this masterclass workshop for 85 of us sitting there and being part of this. And, I think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I think people were very pleasantly surprised at how cohesive it was, that it wasn't just like these random, oh, we're going to have a speaker about this, we're going to have a speaker about that. Of course, there's something to be said for that in its own environment. And certainly many FI events are like that and they're wonderful. But this was really like a start to finish workshop as I saw it. Is that how you conceptualize it?
Yeah. I like how you talked about these things going together in a way that maybe doesn't seem obvious to someone on the outside. Like it was so funny me trying to explain this event to, to some friends, right, who know I have this weird interest in personal finance. And so they're like, oh, you're going to this finance conference. I'm like, no, that's not really it. And yet, what could be more closely tied to personal finance than how you're spending your day? Like how you're designing your life. And so I think the connection is really clear, but not obvious.
Agreed. And yeah, it's certainly, well, maybe clear and obvious to us, but right, to most people, not at all in the sense that, right, like you hear personal finance conference or I'm going for a weekend, like even people trying to explain, I'm going to Camp FI, right? Like, what the heck is Camp FI? And people, I think, there get caught up in the camp word and think it's some like roughing it in the middle of nowhere. Camp FIs are not like that at all. They're usually at these nice retreat centers and you have a nice bed, you have a door with a lock on it, right? So, but yeah, I mean, like you're saying, I think those of us in the Choose FI community know that the personal finance side of this is like, it's not exactly a Trojan horse for living a better life, but it's like the entree. It's the way in to really have the space and time and energy to think about what you want out of life. And when you don't have this massive stress hanging over your head when it comes to your finances, then you can actually focus on all those other things that are so critically important and that so many of us neglect for really our entire lives. And I think it's so, so important. And I mean, Ginger, I've been to a whole lot of these conferences. The only one that I've ever been to that was really like finance focused was the Bogleheads conference. And that isn't even like a FI conference. That was actually nuts and bolts of money. But no FI event that I've ever been to is nuts and bolts of money. It's the other stuff. It's the relationships. It's the learning how to live a better life. It's little life hacks or some such. So yeah, that's how I think of these events.
Yeah, you often talk about how money is a tool. And so this is just, okay, well, what are we going to use that tool for? And having some space to sort of think about that.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you I don't want to put you on the spot here, but like I always talk about how the relationships are so important. Like how did you feel being immersed amongst a community of 5 people for the first time ever, really?
It was so fun. I think one thing that really surprised me, because I guess I hadn't really thought about it a lot ahead of time, but was how it is really such a diverse community in terms of
Yeah.
like where you're at on your FI journey. And so when you get those people in a room, that is really exciting to talk to people who have just gotten started, to talk to people who just retired last year, to talk to people who are, counting down their months. And so that was really a lot of fun. And then at one point, I remember having the thought, like, why is this so much fun right now? Like, why am I having such a good time? And I
Yeah.
think it's something about that the people who showed up wanted to. Like, they wanted to connect with other people. That's why they were there. And to actually be in that with people who are excited about the same things, but also are excited in the idea of community and that, hey, we can share this with each other and we can help each other out. Like that is just a really energetic, exciting place to be.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, you have a lot of people self-selecting in to A, our community generally, and then
Yeah.
B, a specific event. And yeah, it's funny. I've been traveling a lot lately. This is now, I guess like the fourth Fi-ish event that I've been on in the last couple months. And I guess they're all different reasons. I went up to New York City to record 2 live podcasts with Paula Pant actually for Afford Anything, which by the time this goes live, they will have already come out. It's episode 500 and 501. And Ginger, that was the coolest thing ever. We basically sold out a comedy club in Brooklyn
Oh,
with
so
5 people.
fun.
And if you ever had like on my life bingo card, like selling out a comedy club, I would have said you were out of your mind. But it was really cool. And there must have been something about the environment, like being in a comedy club, because I actually had some of my lifelong friends from home because I grew up on Long Island about an hour from there. And I mean I had the crowd like laughing a number of times. And it was like my buddy came up to me afterwards. He's like, who knew you were so funny? Like, where has this been your entire life? So it was that was cool. I mean, the energy of speaking before people is
Yeah.
it can be pretty intoxicating.
The magic of the venue.
Yeah, the magic indeed. So that was cool.
Okay.
Economy,
I was going to say, you also went to economy.
yes.
Well, here's a question I have about economy and people like you going to economy. When you go, do you learn anything? Or is it that it's fun and it's fun to be
Yeah.
around people, sort of like we were talking about with this latest event? Or do you walk away and say, oh, actually, I'm thinking about this thing in a different way? Or I've decided after, such and such workshop that I want to be making some changes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the point.
No, it is a really insightful question, Ginger. And I think the answer is kind of like multifaceted in the sense that, like, if you ask me in my heart of hearts, why am I going? I'm going for friends and connection.
Hmm.
No question about it. I'm going to support Diana's event. I'm going to, I'm I guess part of the event in a couple of different areas, but I'm really just going to see my friends, to meet new people. And I think last year, so 2023 economy was really the first event I'd been to since COVID. And I think that kind of it really woke me up to just, and this is very myopically about me, obviously, but like to how powerful ChooseFi still is today and just how much of an impact it's having. And just really more importantly, how important our community is and how big our community is and how vibrant. Because I think amidst the doldrums of COVID, it was easy to think we're all kind of islands unto ourselves, right? And to see hundreds of new people to Phi come out to Cincinnati, Ohio in March, was just like the coolest, most energizing thing. And that like it really emboldened me. And yeah, like an event like that, it's kind of hard for me personally in the sense that, I'm having hundreds of little conversations, little 2 to 5 minute conversations. So I'm not like having that many grand, in depth conversations, though there are some of them, obviously. But I think it's really neat for me, at least, to like hear people's stories. And like, I know they're excited to talk to me and tell me about the changes they made. So I feel like on some level, I'm there for that. But, it's actually like to answer your question about learning things. I mean, I think I do learn things. I think the main stage speakers that Diana has have been like uniformly good over the last 2 years. I've just been really impressed. And like they run the gamut from like a 20-minute talk about e-bikes by Kevin from the Financial Panther, which was super random to me, but like really interesting, to James Lowery, who we're having on the podcast imminently, if it hasn't already published yet. And he was talking about like his lazy landlord system of short-term and long-term rentals, which was really interesting. And I think will be super valuable for the community too. There was a attorney talking about prenuptial agreements and like how important they are. And it was just something that like had never crossed my plate before. And I think sometimes I can have blinders on of like my own lived experience. And I think it's important to open the aperture up. And since I'm building and making ChooseFi for the community, I can't just limit it to my own experience. So something like that is an episode I never would have thought to have, but it's something I think is pretty important. So that'll probably happen in the next year too.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about some of the things that we did, but let's talk about how we got there.
Mm.
Let's talk about travel points.
Your favorite topic.
Yeah. Something exciting happened, which is that I
Ooh.
finally
Oh, dun,
got
dun, dun.
I finally got the companion pass. Well, I got the
Oh.
mini version. Did you see this offer that just came out?
I did in passing, but give us the details.
Yeah, so it was if you open such and such a card, then you could get a mini pass and you spent like the $4,000 in 3 months or whatever. And the mini pass is for less than a year. Like it expires at the end of February. Okay, so I'm
Okay.
like, "Oh my gosh, this is my chance because I'm never going to spend enough to get the other one or be able to stack it and whatever." So the problem is I already have a Southwest card. So I do
Okay.
the thing where, well, first I tried to apply for it because it's one that's like a tier above, and they say, no, you already have a card. Okay. So then I did the thing that we talk about sometimes, which is just call them and try. So I called them, hey, can I upgrade to this other card and get this bonus? And they say, no, can't do that. Oh, okay. All right. Goodbye. So then the next day, I had this idea, which may is really obvious to you, but I was like, wait a minute, can't I just cancel my card? And then the next day, open this new card.
Hmm.
And I Googled it and it seemed like a thing that you could do. So I gave it a try and it worked.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to have a mini companion pass now.
That is really cool. Okay. So, right, we're recording this in April of 24. So, when is it good through and what are the details?
Yeah, mine just came through and it's good through the end of February.
Of 25.
Mhm. Yep.
Damn. That's not too bad.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So, what are the plans? I'm assuming you did not use it to go to Las Vegas, but what
No.
are what are plans to use it?
Well, this past winter, I did go to Palm Springs for the first time, and I loved it. I loved
Nice.
the sunshine so much. And so I think I'm going to either go back there or somewhere close to there in the winter, maybe a couple times. But yeah, and I also think I'm gonna go to the Grand Canyon for the first time this fall.
Really? Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. But this brings up a question that I have that maybe other people have as well who are thinking about the companion pass. So, one thing I knew ahead of time is that you could change your companion. So, I went in and put who my companion was. And then they have a little thing that's like, okay, if you want to change this, you need to call us. Okay, that's fine. But here's my question. So, I'm going to buy my ticket and add my companion, however
Yeah.
that works. And then immediately after I do that, but before I've taken the trip, can I change my companion to book another trip?
Ginger, that is a really good question. So, what's interesting is I personally have never had the companion pass. So, kind of random. Obviously, I've been in the travel rewards world for over a decade now, but we just have like a terrible Southwest presence at the Richmond airport. So, it never really made any sense. And actually, another kind of travel rewards thing in the back of your mind is always Google your airport. So, I just do literally Richmond Airport Wiki, like Wikipedia page, and you can head there and check every single Wikipedia page has the airlines and destinations section, and you can always see like what airlines fly out of your personal airport or the airport that you're thinking of traveling from. So that's kind of like a good starting point for travel rewards, like when you're thinking about booking a flight. But yeah, just looking at mine, it's very, very few options, unfortunately, for Southwest. But what I did was I just Googled this, and on support.southwest.com, they say so A, you can change your designated companion up to 3 times each calendar year. So just be mindful of that. You don't want to change it too many times because that you're quite literally limited to that 3 per calendar year. And it says any reservation with your current designated companion must be canceled before changing your designated companion. So I guess that canceled or taken, right? So that's actually the answer to your question. So
Yeah,
at least according to Southwest. I mean, I have to assume that's the authority here. So yeah, you cannot just change it and then book another companion. So
right.
unfortunately, that's a slight limitation, which hopefully doesn't mess you up too much, but it's better to know now.
Yeah, that's helpful. Okay, how about your travel wins or what has been going on for you in terms of I know you said there you had hit some lounges?
Yeah, yeah. I continue to get some pretty good value out of airport lounges. And the card that I like a lot and that I'm using now personally is well, actually, I opened up a new card recently. I'll talk about that in a second. But the Capital One Venture X. So, this is their premium card. And as of the day we're recording this, it has a $395 annual fee, which is
Woo!
crazy, right, Ginger? When you hear that, it's like, I never my like old frugality sensors like would always go off when it came to like any of those, like the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Amex Platinum. It just I could never justify paying the significant fee. But for this card, I actually can and continue to justify it. So this particular card, again, as the date we're recording this, which is April 19th of 2024, the $395 annual fee, but you get a $300 annual travel credit. So
Mhm.
as long as you remember, which is the critical part, to book travel through Capital One's travel portal on your online login, you get $300 just free. So that nets the fee down to $95. Now, of course, you have to remember that, right? It's every year that you have the card. But as long as you do that, you just make a note to do that. It's then a $95 annual fee. And then you also get an anniversary bonus. I think it's 10,000 points. So that's actually worth at minimum $100 just to cash it in, to offset one of your travel expenses. So that actually brings the fee to $5 to the positive. So like a
Mhm.
negative $5 fee. And you get the priority pass access. And it's like this super premium priority pass. So I think at last count, there were 1,300 airport lounges that you have access to, which is really phenomenal. Priority pass is especially useful if you're traveling internationally, but they do have a whole array of lounges at US airports.
So, is the priority pass is that specifically just speaking to lounges, or is there something else that goes with that?
So yeah, I mean, as far as I understand, the significant portion of Priority Pass are lounges. There are some like other things you can get at airports. Like some of them have like what are they like minute rests or I don't know. It's some kind of place where you can like essentially just like rest. I can't say like get a massage or something like that, but it's like a oasis kind of deal. But more or less, they're pretty much exclusively these lounges. But yeah, Priority Pass essentially has nothing to do with the Venture X other than that the Venture X offers that as a like they're not tied together as companies, but that the Venture X offers you Priority Pass. But the other kind of neat thing that Capital One is doing is they are building their own lounges now. So there are Capital One lounges that if you have this Venture X, you get access to. And I didn't even realize that this was happening. But I went to another trip. I took my daughter down to Texas for a roller coaster trip, which was awesome. We flew into Dallas and went to San Antonio. And so we went to three different amusement parks in 3 days. We went to two Six Flags parks and SeaWorld. And on the way back, we were flying through Dallas. I saw this Capital One lounge and I actually get free access to it if you have the Venture X. And Ginger, I kid you not, it was the best lounge I've ever been in. It was like,
I've been in that lounge.
have you?
Yes,
It's ridiculous, right?
yes. Because I have the card that's like one down from that, and
Okay.
it's you get 2 free passes a year.
Mm.
And so I had used it on that one, and it was incredible.
Right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
walk in and they're like, they have to reiterate to you, everything is free. They say it like 5 times because you can't believe your eyes, like to the point where you walk in and there's like, it looks like a convenience store at first, like a beautiful convenience store where
yeah.
there's just all this stuff and it's just all free. You can just take it off the shelves. And then they have all the hot food and of course the bar and stuff. But yeah, that was a very pleasant surprise. I think there are three of them now. There's one in Dulles in DC, Denver, and DFW. I think they're building one in Las Vegas, actually, also. So stay
Ah.
tuned. But yeah, nice little free perk that I was not anticipating.
I know, I remember just thinking like, "Oh, this has ruined me." Like, I this is how it has to be from now on. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
incredible. They also have these little room did you book any of the little rooms?
No, tell me about
Like,
it.
you could book a shower. I booked one of the it was like a meditation room. So
Nice.
just to be alone, for 15 minutes
Yeah.
felt pretty luxurious at that time. But yeah, there's a couple other little things that you could do.
That's very cool. Yeah, I think I saw like a Peloton room or something, maybe, or like something like that. But so meditation, is that part of your life or did you just book a quiet room?
I wish it was more a part of my life. I didn't actually do any deep meditation in the Capital One Lounge, but I was with my family and we had been traveling. This was a leg in our European trip last summer. And so it was just like so overstimulating, just and so many layovers. And so it was just so nice to just be alone in a
Yeah.
quiet room for 15 minutes. So that's really all I used it for.
That's very
But
cool.
yeah, worth it. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. I asked because I think, I've talked on the podcast for years about meditation and how important mindfulness is and just carving out this space. But in all candor, like I kind of had stopped for a while. I'd been using this one YouTube video on yoga nidra. So it's not like yoga as we know it, but yoga nidra, Nidra. And that was like a 10-minute body scan. I would use that pretty religiously. But just in the last couple months, I reconnected with a friend of mine who I met at Chautauqua years ago named Kelly. And she told me about an app called Insight Timer. And it's a free meditation app. And there's this amazing, like 23-minute body scan slash yoga nidra that, I mean, Ginger, I'm on a 72-day streak now of this.
Wow.
And it's really wonderful. I mean, that's a long time. 23 minutes is not an insignificant amount of time, but it's really been very useful for me.
Do you do it right before bed?
I don't. That is a consideration. My slight concern, my little anxiety brain is like that because yoga nidra is so deeply restful. I'm concerned that it's going to like, oh, now I'm wide awake kind of thing. But I know a lot of practitioners talk about doing it before bed to kind of calm you into a resting place. But I haven't gotten there yet, so I'm doing it more in either before lunch or early afternoon.
Yeah. I definitely wanna get into it more, and I keep thinking of the Atomic Habits thing where the problem is it's not part of my system right now, and so
Yeah.
it's just really hard at this season of life where everything is so routine oriented. I have to fit it into my routine, and I just haven't found the perfect way to do that yet.
Yeah, I wonder if it seems daunting or it seems like the time commitment. Like, could you fit 10 minutes into your life?
Of course, let's get real. But I'm
Nice.
never the person who's gonna be like, "Ooh, I have a spare 10 minutes. I should
Yeah.
meditate." And so I'm the person who has to be like, "Okay, well, this is what I do at this time,"
Gotcha.
you know?
Interesting. Okay. Well, maybe we'll check back in with you at some point. But I mean, it could be anything also, right? It could be just a walk outside. Like that's something I've been trying to do a little bit more often now as well, is just get outside.
So I know we're kind of veering off here, which is okay in the ultimate random episode, but before
It's
we get
expected.
before we get too far away from travel, I know you also did a kind of interesting trip in Arizona recently.
Yes. Yeah,
Tell us
this
about
was
that.
cool. So Pete, Mr. Money Mustache, was living in the greater Phoenix area for I think it was 4 months this winter, and so he was staying at a place called Culdesac, and I think he wrote an article about this. It's a community that is trying to, I guess, kind of bill itself as like America's first walkable or like non-car
Mhm.
apartment community basically. And that's something that Pete feels very strongly about is less reliance on cars, more reliance on walking and bicycling and public transportation and things like that. So I think he was there to kind of see what it was all about, to support what they were up to. And this weekend kind of came together out of nowhere. Ultimately it was Doug and Carl from the Mile High Five podcast basically texted me and was like, "Hey, you want to go to Phoenix and hang out with us and Pete?" And I'm like, "Well, sure. I mean, I'm not going to say no to that." And yeah, it wound up being 8 of us. So yeah, Chad Carson wound up coming, as well as JD Roth and David Boyer and Paula Pant. So it wound up just being this like amazing group of friends that I've known for basically a decade now. And yeah, I mean, I think what Culdesac is doing is really laudable. I think it's still early on in what they're developing. So it's kind of hard to get like a true sense of like, is this viably a walkable community? But I think it gives like a blueprint for maybe how to rethink like what is like I was very myopically focused on walkable, like that word being the operative word and the only one that mattered, in the sense that like, hey, there's no grocery store within a tenth of a mile or 2/10 of a mile. So is this really walkable? And I kept getting caught up, and I wasn't being like a stick in the mud about it. I was just, but I kept getting caught up. And I think what the CEO and founder of or co-founder, I guess, of Culdesec told me in response to the question was, it's more thinking of it as car free and like an array of transportation options. So they're right across the street from Phoenix. Just built a light rail line all throughout the metro area. And it's literally right across the street from Cul-de-sac. And every resident of Cul-de-sac gets it for free, which is awesome. Obviously, there's walkability. They have e-bikes, which I rode, kind of going back to what I said before about economy and Kevin from the Financial Panther and his talk on e-bikes. I rode an e-bike for the first time, and it was amazing. It was so cool. I mean, it's funny because I've read Pete talk about bikes like
Mhm.
for
Ever.
10 plus years now. And Ginger, I rode a bike with Mr. Money Mustache through a city. It was crazy.
The dream.
Right. It
Ran
was so
Random tangent, but I don't wanna forget, I just saw that if you live in Colorado, you can get a $450 subsidy on an e-bike.
really.
Anyone, any Colorado resident, and
Huh.
you get it at the bike shop.
Oh my God. That's wild. I had never heard of that before. That's incredible. I mean, those things. And even again, a much smaller instance is like that light rail thing of them getting it for free and it being right across the street. People are going to use that.
Yeah.
It's getting rid of the friction, right? So how can you get rid of friction? And the other cool thing, and this is kind of the last word on the Phoenix trip here, is Waymo is operating in Phoenix. Has that ever crossed your plate?
No, what's Waymo?
Okay. So Waymo is Google's autonomous vehicle project.
Oh, okay.
So this is not like, Tesla's kind of joke of autonomous vehicle that's 7 years late and doesn't look like it's happening. This is actually real. So basically, you arrive in Phoenix, you can download the Waymo One app and just call as if it were Uber or Lyft, an autonomous vehicle. And Ginger, I kid you not, it was the most amazing thing I've ever done. It was so cool. It was like seeing into the future. It was wild, absolutely wild.
Were you scared?
I have to say, I wasn't scared. I really wasn't. I mean, it was crazy. So Paula Pant and I took a Waymo back from cul-de-sac to the airport. We both had flights around the same time. And yeah, I mean, it was like probably 20 to 25-minute ride. And I mean, the car was as good or better. I mean, it basically has to be a 99th percentile human driver or better, really. It was as good as any human driver I've ever seen. But it was crazy. I mean, like the wheel was turning because it still has like the, vestigial wheel of like old school, like it has to be a car, but literally turning and there's no driver there. And the darn thing is just moving. But I actually took like a 45-second video of it stopping at a red light and attempting to make a right on red. And I mean, this is a driverless car knowing enough to make a right hand turn on red. And it treated it as, again, as well as a 99th percentile human driver would. Like it stopped, it then inched up, it saw cars coming. And then I could see out of the corner of my eye that the light was turning the other way. So that's when you start making the decision, oh, am I going to turn or not? Like if everybody's stopping, then I can think about turning. And it, clearly was quote unquote thinking about it. But then three cars kind of ran the late yellow, early red, and it just kind of stopped on its brakes. Our Waymo waited a beat. Those three cars passed by. Our light turned green, and it just went on its merry way. And it was amazing. Like
Wow.
at that moment, I'm like, this is the future of everything. This
Yeah.
is remarkable.
What a cool experience.
It was really cool.
Okay, well, Brad, did you do any worky type things on this trip, or was it just about hanging out with each other?
It was mostly hanging out. We did record a podcast with the founder of Culdesac. So you can find that on the Mile High Fi podcast feed. I think Paula Pan actually did a separate interview with him as well. But I personally, so I sat in on the first podcast and asked some questions. But yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know, Ginger, I'm very low key. Like I just wanted it to be a fun weekend. And so yeah, it was very minimal work, which is good.
Okay, speaking of podcasts, have you been listening to any new podcasts lately?
Yeah, Ginger, that's a good question. So new podcast. I am mortified by how many podcasts I actually listen to. So I don't
You're
have a ton of
mortified
space.
because it's so high or
It's so
because
many.
Oh,
Oh, it's
okay.
so many. It's so many. It's ridiculous. Like I've gotten better at just kind of like ruthlessly deleting episodes when I just simply don't have time because otherwise I get stressed of, oh no, I've got to listen to all these things. But so you asked new. Yeah, actually, two of our friends recently started podcasts. So I mentioned David Boyer earlier. So he's actually the brother of Stephen Boyer, who's the founder of Camp Fi. So David was a military officer for years. I've known him for a long time. He has a podcast called Forget About Money, and it's actually quite good. He had an episode on the 72T. So this was something that I thought was an absolute revelation when I talked about it with Sean Mullaney in episode 475. So I highly recommend, if you guys haven't listened to episode 475, check it out for ChooseFi. Total game changer for basically how you access your money before 59 and a half. And yeah, David had a real deep dive into that recently. And he also had an episode with J.L. Collins and Paul Merriman debating wealth strategies, which was pretty wild for a new podcast to get that kind of level of guest. And then our good friends Carl and Mindy. So Mindy from Bigger Pockets Money, Carl 1500 Days. They're married, obviously. They have Mindy on Money. So it's Mindy and Carl on Money as a new podcast. So those are the ones I'm listening to. But what about you?
Okay, the new one I've been really enjoying is called Retire Often, I think, and that's
Oh,
Jillian Johnsrud, and she is interviewing different people about their experiences with mini retirements, and it is so
yes.
fun to listen to other people's experiences on, like, how they make it work, and people who are doing a month-long adventure to years long, and so it's really interesting just to hear not just the practical things, but the whys of why people do it and what their takeaways are. So I love it. You should check it out if you haven't listened to it.
That's very cool. Are you contemplating a mini retirement? Is that something that would have crossed your plate before that?
Great question. I think it's one of those things that once it's kind of been planted, when I first heard about it, it's like, oh, this is so unavailable to me because of my job. I can't just take a month off. And then you keep hearing about people doing it, and here's all the obstacles that they overcame. So it's something that I'm thinking about, and it's still in those stages of like, I'm not quite sure how I would make it happen, but I'm really compelled by the idea for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
How about you?
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. So first, and I probably should have listed Jillian's podcast. I went to my like 10 most recently subscribed podcasts, and that's where I picked Forget About Money and Mini on Money. Jillian's is probably 5 before that on my list. So, yes, I'm actually deeply thinking about this. Yeah, Jillian has this really great workbook called Retire Often. So, if you just retireoften.com/workbook, and she actually sent one to me, and she has a group coaching. So, I've actually been like deeply involved with thinking about this over the last couple months. And you know, I think the honest answer is I'm like I've burned myself out when it comes to working, and it sounds ridiculous for someone who's financially independent, but like I've given a lot of myself to ChooseFi, and I think a lot of it was self-imposed and frankly stupid and needless, and it was just like all these things that like I do in the background that are like micromanaging things that are like making me burnout. It's not this. I mean, Ginger, I could record a podcast like this with you every day, and like it's not the podcast that has done that to me. It's not even my newsletter. I think like those are the two things I get the most energy from.
Mhm.
And yet, interestingly, those are the highest value also. That's the real irony of this is like the things that are most valuable for me to create and most valuable for people to receive are the things that I get the most energy from. But it's all the other stuff I've been doing behind the scenes that are like killing me basically. So long story short is, yeah, I am planning this year, if all goes well, or that's a terrible caveat. That's a pathetic cop out caveat. I am planning this year to take a mini retirement.
And what does that mean to you?
It means that I am basically, for what I'm imagining as 3 months. Right now,
Wow.
I'm thinking a 3-month mini retirement is where my brain is. That I will effectively like be detoxing from work. I will not be at my computer. I will be living life basically, and I don't know what that looks like right now. I'm actually go. Well, I know part of it is I'm going to Bali for the 5 Freedom Retreat
Oh,
that Amy
cool.
Minkley's running.
Yes, cool.
So that'll be awesome. So there'll be a big trip in there. Probably you're going all the way to Bali. It's probably going to be a 2 to 3 week trip after all is said and done. So I'm doing that. And yeah, I don't know what else, but I know it looks like not sitting in front of the computer, opening my email or responding to posts in the Facebook group or doing things like that. I think there will be no interruption in the podcast schedule or the podcast publication because again, I love podcasting. This is my favorite part. I love this. And it's actually really easy for me to get ahead. So it doesn't feel like cheating on the mini retirement that like I'm just going to record those 12 episodes basically ahead of time because again, that's easy. The newsletter is going to be a little harder. I don't know to write 12 episodes of a newsletter ahead of time. That's highly unlikely. So maybe I do like a best of the last 4 years or something like that.
I'll do it.
You want to do it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You heard it here first. That's super cool.
We'll do a takeover.
Nice.
Okay, so here's my question for you.
Okay.
Talking about doing this big thing, you probably haven't done anything quite like this before. What is your primary emotion right now as you're talking about it?
Primary emotion. So now I'm getting the therapist and Ginger coming out. I like this. There is there's a little nervousness. I think nervousness, if that's an emotion, I'm not sure if it is or not, but it's that, but there's this excitement.
Mhm.
I can't say which one's primary. And sorry to not give you a real answer, but it's like both of them are just competing. Like I'm so excited about it, but I am a little nervous.
Yeah. Well, those have the same physiological response. So that can just be, how you frame it and how you tell yourself
Yeah.
what it is that you're experiencing. But that was what I was getting at is like, is this mostly exciting or is this mostly like bringing up any fears or anxieties? Yeah.
No, it's super exciting. I mean, I think it's funny. You just saw me physically lean in. Like nobody listening to this can see that, but like I'm definitely excited. I think in a lot of senses, I built myself like a. This is going to sound terrible and way over dramatic, but like a prison when it comes to a lot of aspects of Choose of I because I've held on to things, and it's like the exact opposite of what I should be doing. Like I should have built systems. I should have empowered people who want to help. I should have hired people to do a lot of these random things. And I think this now is like a forcing function for making it happen.
Mhm.
And I think the way that I'm viewing this, and I think why I'm spending so much time talking about this is because I think hopefully this can help a lot of other people who are thinking about how do I make a change in life?
Mhm.
And for me, it's there's a pre mini retirement life and a post mini retirement life because I cannot imagine a scenario where when I come back that I'm just going to fall into my old habits because I'll have already built systems. Like that's the whole thing. I've got probably 5 months from the date we're recording this to the date this allegedly will start or hopefully will start. And I have to get all this stuff off my plate. So like that hopefully will be enduring. And like I said, I'm not just going to slip back 3 months later and do all that nonsense because like my highest value and what I get the most energy from are the newsletter and the podcast. And those I could do indefinitely. I think from an energetic standpoint, if I let all this other minutia bog me down, there's no way that I could do this for the next 5, 10, 20 years, you know?
I think there's so many people who listen to this show who are entrepreneurs. And so it is really helpful just to hear someone else who have sort of struggled with that overwhelm and then recognizing, oh, wait, like I am also the one who can change this. And there's that resistance, like that point of it's so hard to change things. And so I think it can be inspiring to hear how someone's doing that and how they're getting over their anxieties about doing it. Yeah. And then
That's
you
awesome.
spoke to something that I always think about, which is like if I did something like this, and I'm thinking of like a month, like or a year. Sometimes I think about a year. But one concern I have is like, oh man, what if I can't stand going back after I do that?
Yeah.
But I like how you're talking about it, which is no, of course it won't be the same. And so the goal isn't, oh, I'm going to step back exactly into my life. And so if you already have that expectation of, no, it's going to be different when I come back, that seems like a healthy and realistic and exciting way to think about it.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I think to me, it's almost like how we've described for years now in ChooseFi, like about like FU money. So bear with me here. This is kind of a random merging of a couple of thoughts, but FU money was always not that you're literally going to walk in and be a jerk, nothing like that, but that it gives you power that you can say, hey, this part of my job I hate it. I can't put up with it anymore. I can't do this. But look at how much value I add to this organization. And you go into your boss and say like, "Hey, look, something's got to change or I'm going to have to walk," right? And when that power dynamic shifts, I think you'll be surprised at how people if not bend over backwards, then at least are willing to be flexible. And I think I'm viewing this as like a similar way for my own business. And like you said, so many people are entrepreneurs in our community. So hopefully there's value here. And that I have built this thing, this job, if you will, of which many of the aspects of it I really don't like. And I think once in essence I've flexed that FU money, if you will, to my own job, right? Or really this mini retirement. I truly believe that it'll be gone for good. And what will be left is the parts that I love and I absolutely love. And I think that's the takeaway for people is find the parts of your job and your life that like you really love and how do you lean into that? And how do you maybe work to make your life better? Even just like we always talk about Ginger, like these 1% changes, right? And it's like sometimes you don't even think because it's always, oh, it's just easier to do something. Like do it in the moment. Oh, that only takes me 2 minutes or whatever, instead of finding like a permanent solution for something. Or in my case, like creating when I'm writing my newsletter and like literally putting it into our emails system, ConvertKit. Like I'm creating Loom videos now to document everything, to have like standard operating procedures for things. And like even something as simple as every Friday in the Facebook group, I ask this one question of like, what did you do this last week to make your life better in essence? And we get all these amazing comments. And for years, Facebook only allowed you to schedule like 8 of them at once. So every 2 months, in essence, I have a to-doist task,
Mhm.
schedule the 1% wins. And I just learned because I asked someone, they just added new functionality to make that a permanent thing. So now that's gone. That's off my to-doist, which is awesome. And so it's like, what are these little points of friction that you can find in your life that you can make a permanent solution for? I think that's the takeaway. Like, and we can all do that, whether we're contemplating a mini retirement or not. How do you find points of friction and just make them easier or eliminate them forever?
Okay, well, I'm really glad I asked you about what podcasts you were listening to.
Yeah, that was unexpected.
Yeah, but it's so exciting, and people are gonna be so excited to hear about your progress on this and what it's like for you to actually take that break.
Nice.
So, is there anything else we need to talk about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we have a whole list of things that we certainly could talk about. One other thing, I know we talked about travel rewards before.
Yeah.
I actually came across a really cool travel rewards tool that I think our community especially will like. So Chris Hutchins from the All the Hacks podcast recently had Greg, the frequent miler, on his show, and that episode was fantastic. If you're like really looking to dive into like very granular, specific like search tools and things. I think you can take a lot from that episode, but one in particular jumped out to me. So the website is called Points Yeah. So it's points plural, YEAH.com. And then if you type in, so pointsyeah.com/explorer, or just go to their website and then just click Daydream Explorer up in the top nav bar. Ginger, this is like the thing I've been waiting for 10 years, basically. So it more or less shows all like the hot deals they've found using rewards points. So basically, what that means in practical terms is hey, you plug in your local airports, and then they show you essentially everything that hits their okay, this is a hot deal. So I'm seeing like just on the homepage of this, like San Francisco to Glasgow for 30,000 points. I'm seeing Oklahoma City to New York for 7,500 points. Like you can put in your local airports and then you can really specify, like, hey, I want to go to Europe. So, hey, I want to go to Europe in the next 6 months for people with flexibility. Ginger, I think this is awesome. It's like the question has always been, hey, I've got all these points and I just want to travel. I can be flexible. I just want to go places and I want to get a good deal. I think those are the things that hold people up is like, I don't know if I'm getting a good deal on these points or not. Like, I can never find anything, blah, 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 all that stuff. This company has found it for you. So they let you like really dive into this of like, you could just do United States to anywhere. And then there are like thousands of these things, or you put the 5 closest airports to you and you say, hey, I want to go to Europe or I want to go to Asia. And it just shows you everything they found that they specify as like a really good deal. And I'm just shocked at how many things like I'm seeing Philadelphia to Nassau, Bahamas for 7,500 points, which is insane. I mean, that's an international flight for 7,500 points. Like, I would never think of that. But, like, frankly, Philadelphia is just a short little drive for me. Like, am I going to do that? Probably not. But, like, if I wanted to, there's a flight on May the 14th from Philly to Nassau for 7,500 points. Like, that is really, really cool. So, hopefully, I'm doing a decent job explaining this, Ginger. But, like, this is the thing I've been waiting for a very long time.
Okay, crucial thing you haven't mentioned here. Is it free?
Ooh, good question. I did not mention that. It is certainly free from what I'm seeing. They do have an upgrade in the upper right here. So it looks like there's a premium plan for like $8 a month, but everything I just described to you is free. That Explorer is free. And I
Mhm.
think even when you click on them, they show you like how and where to book, where to find them, et cetera. So that seems free. I think this Points Yeah allows you to do like much more specific things like search very specific routes and try to find availability and such. There are a bunch of these tools that I've checked out recently. So there's seats.aero, AERO, so seats.aero, and then there's point.me. So yeah, there's a lot of these tools that are like allowing you to search for very specific availability. And I from what I've seen, they're usually somewhere in that vicinity of $8 to $10 a month. So I think this Points Yeah is that. But yeah, this Explorer is totally free from what I can tell.
Very cool. I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's just fun to play around with. It really is.
Oh, and so that reminds me, we were gonna put a call out for travel wins from the community.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, this is your idea.
Yeah, well, we like talking about travel rewards, and I think people it's really inspiring to hear other people's wins. And so we wanna hear, let's say, the last year and a half, what are the big travel reward wins that you've got? And we are hoping you will call in and give us the details, and then we'll do an episode about it.
Yes. I think it sounds awesome. I love getting the community involved. I'm really trying to do this much more often now. So, just in the newsletter, I put out a call for fun date nights that you might have, like frugal or just fun, inexpensive date nights. In essence, I'm trying to do more of these follow up episodes. So, like I had Dean Turner, my trainer, on. We're going to do a follow up episode on that. We're going to do one on Social Security and the military, all these things. So, yeah, I'm so glad you thought of this. And yeah, you can always, I guess, really, like you said, the best way is via voicemail. So just go to choosefi.com/voicemail. Or if you really don't want to send a voicemail in, just hit respond, hit reply to any of my newsletters and just send in your travel rewards win and say, hey, you want it for that episode. But really, Ginger, you and I want to hear people's excitement in their voices, right? And tell us about the points that you used, how you got there, and then tell us a little bit about the trip. I think
Yeah.
we all just want to hear about it. It's fun.
And then if you have any advice for anyone who might be trying to do something similar, maybe.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And yeah, I mean, I think for years, a lot of us have really been good at earning points, but it's the spending. Obviously, that's the fun part. And yeah, a couple of those tools that I just mentioned are making it a whole lot easier. And yeah, I mean, just seeing that other people are doing this. And again, like with some flexibility, and this is not to say that everyone listening to this is retired early and sitting around just waiting to travel. That's not the kind of flexibility we're talking about. It's just an open mind, I think. If you just say, hey, I want to travel, I've got these points, and I have an open mind, you're going to use them incredibly well. So, yeah, let's hear your story. So, again, choosefi.com/voicemail.
All right. Well, Brad, thank you so much for inviting me back. That was so fun. And I look forward to hearing what the listeners bring to us for our next episode.
Nice. Yeah, this is great. We'll definitely. I want to do more of these ultimate random shows, so we'll have to. I feel like our format. Well, that's what's fun again about creating something. Just generally, it's like our format's always changing. Like you and I, we've done a couple book club episodes. We obviously did those the month end, I guess, roundup type episodes, and yeah, maybe we'll bring some roundups back. Maybe we'll do more of these ultimate shows. But that's what's cool. Is we're just having fun and. Hopefully these are things that are really of interest to the community. And as always, just keep your comments coming. Keep your recommendations, any kind of life hacks, things you've found. Like you, the community, are the lifeblood of the show. And we want to bring you into it as much as possible. So, yeah, Ginger's idea was awesome about the travel rewards, and that's going to be fun. So, stay tuned. And Ginger, you and I are going to record that date night episode. So, I mentioned that in the newsletter. And we got a whole bunch of feedback. We got a bunch of voicemails. So that's going to be a good time.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned indeed. All right. Thanks for listening to ChooseFi, and we will see you next time.